mobility. And I will welcome you all to the session and give you a bit of background for the first 5 minutes. And then afterwards, I will give the words to my colleague from Austria, Alexandra Anderlu. She will talk about sustainable mobility projects in St. Polten. Then we will hear from Tom Nijsse from Flux 50 about his examples of sustainable mobility in Limburg. Then I will say goodbye to those of you who have to leave. But for those who are interested, we have an additional hour for more in-depth discussion and questions. So in the Change Corner, we want to inspire you with the idea that change is just around the corner. This means that we want to give good examples and good practices of things concerning sustainability that are already happening in your daily life or in your region. And it originates, the Change Corner, from the Eudres project. And Eudres is an international European project in which we work together with 5 other regions. Austria is one of them. That's why Alexandra is joining us today. And that's also the reason why the lectures are in English, because we want to share the recordings afterwards with our partners from the region. But we don't want the language to be a threshold for you. So if it's more easy for you to ask questions in Dutch, please feel free to, and we will translate them for you. And in Eudres, we think about the universities of the future. And in the future, we want to have universities and university colleges that are tied to the region. This means that they do education and research that is inspired from the region. And the Change Corner is related to the research work package. And we want the research to come from questions that citizens and stakeholders have in the region of Limburg. So in the Change Corner, we don't only want to inspire you, but we also want to hear about your ideas and the barriers that you're experiencing to behave more sustainably. Because in the Eudres project, we really have a platform where we can try to come up with research projects to support you in overcoming those barriers. And one of the ways in which we want to hear from you is by photo challenges that we organize. So each lecture session also has a photo challenge tied to it. So on the right, you can see the photos and submissions that we got from the previous challenge, which was on circular economy. And you can see that people share their good examples on going to thrift stores or buying zero waste or repairing some of the stuff they had so it can be in use for longer. Now for this session, there's still a photo challenge to which you can participate, and you have a chance to win a reusable bottle. You can see it on the top of the slide. It's a bottle made from sugar cane. And what you need to do to participate is either send your pictures of good challenges or barriers on Instagram and tag the Eudres European University, or either if you don't want to send them through Instagram and you don't want to post them, you can also email them to office@eudres.eu. And now to get started, I would also like to ask you some questions already so we can have an idea of what kind of people we have in this room. So first of all, I'd like to ask you whether you own a car, and you can participate by going to the link that you see on top, wooklab.com/changecorner2, and then you can answer just yes or no. So we already have 2 participants who say that they both have a car. 3. Okay, and there are some people here as well that don't own a car, which is good news for our second speaker, because that's something that he will be talking about. I'll wait a bit longer. Okay, so most of us own a car. Then I'll go to Oh, another one who owns a car. Then I'll go to the next question that I'd like to ask you before that we start our session. And in this question, you can divide 100 points between different ways of transporting yourself. And I'd like to know how much of the time you use these different ways. So the first one is your own motorized vehicle, which can be a car, but it could also be a motorbike. The second one is carpooling. The third one is a shared car. And in this question, with a shared car, I mean like the real car sharing business models like Cambio, or where you pay to share a car. The fourth one is public transport. And the last one is an active mode of transportation. And this can be like biking or walking or anything where you have to move to transport yourself. And you can divide it either way you want. Either you say, I always use the car, and you give the 100 points to just the car, or maybe you divide them a bit through all of the options.
I already give a bit away of my presentation, but what if you share your own car? Difficult, eh?
Yeah, that's difficult. I would say that's the shared car then, I guess. So it seems that most of the time the participants here use their own car or a motorbike or other motorized vehicle. Also a lot of public transport. I can't really see the points for the active mode of transportation since the window is in front of it. I can change, yeah. Oh, also a lot of active transportation, even more than the owned car. That's very nice. Okay. And then there's one more thing that I'd like to share with you before I give the word to my colleague. This wasn't a submission to our photo challenge, but I wish it was because it's such a nice example. I saw it on Facebook last week, and apparently Austria, so which is also a part of our Eudres consortium, Austria always gives a Christmas tree to the European Parliament. And normally it gets transported by truck, but this year it got transported by the newly night train that we now have between Vienna and Brussels. So there's an Austrian Christmas tree coming to Brussels, or it has already arrived in Brussels by train. And this, I think, is a very nice example. To now give the word to my colleague from Austria, Alex. So Alex, I'll stop sharing my screen and you can take over.
Thank you very much, Sarah. So I'll start my screen sharing. Okay, I just have to find the correct. So, okay. And then, does it work?
Yes, it works.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so Sarah already introduced me briefly. So my name is Alexandra Andalou. I'm senior researcher at the St. Pölten University of Applied Sciences at the Institute for Integrated Mobility Research. And here I deal with a lot of different research projects in the field of sustainable mobility. And I'm also part of the Eudres research team dealing with the topic of circular economy. And today I'm going to talk about a specific part of sustainable mobility, and that is active mobility. As we have already seen in Sarah's little survey, there are a lot of people who do already use active mobility in this group. And therefore, I want to point out a few benefits and challenges in addition to increase the knowledge about the pros and challenges of active mobility. So, first of all, as a lot of you have already said, they use active mobility. Nevertheless, I want to point out what is active mobility. And so active mobility, we do refer to active mobility if we talk about getting from point A to point B, mainly by muscular strength. So, for example, by walking or by cycling, this could be normal bikes. This could also be cargo bikes if you want to transport certain goods. And also if you use so-called pedelecs, so electrically assisted bikes or cargo bikes, then we also count this as active mobility. What we do not count as active mobility are, for example, such things like e-scooters, because you just have to stand on the e-scooter. It's not really so much related to using muscular strength for getting from A to B. So as it was also mentioned in the survey before, mainly walking and cycling are the major active mobility modes, if we want to call it like that. Oh, and why do I want to talk about the benefits of active mobility? Because I would say some of the benefits are quite obvious, others are maybe not so obvious. One obvious thing, of course, is traffic-related benefits. I have here a few figures from an association dealing with a lot of sustainable mobility issues in Austria. Therefore, the description is in German. I apologize for that, but I will translate it anyways. So one very important benefit of active mobility is that it is space saving. So you see here on the left-hand side the space requirements in square meters per person for different modes of transport. So as you can see here, the highest numbers here have the car, either using highways, so that's the most space requiring mode, or also with in cities. Then it's a bit less, but nevertheless you need about 40 to nearly 50 square meters per person to go by car. On the other hand, if you look at here, this green area here, if you go by bike, you just need on average 8 square meters. Then we have the public transport in between, and of course, walking is the mode that requires the least space, less than 1 square meter. So therefore, active mobility, so 8 square meters on average for biking, less than 1 square meter on average for walking, is definitely very space saving. And also, if you look at the parking issue, if you compare a car with, for example, cargo bikes, so two-wheel cargo bikes in this example, then the area that takes just one parking car, we can park, for example, 4 cargo bikes. So also the parking situation, especially in cities, could be improved a lot just by switching a bit more to active mobility. So we would have much more public space available really for the citizens. And on the other hand side, we could also contribute to reduced congestion, especially in our urban areas, which is also an important issue to improve the quality of living in urban areas. Then, of course, another quite obvious benefit of active mobility lies in the environmental aspect. Because as active mobility is mainly done by our human muscular strength, we do not need very much energy. Here again, on the right-hand side, you see a figure about energy usage by different modes of transport. So the most energy consuming modes are here diesel cars, but also electric cars need a lot of energy. So the blue part here is always the energy that is already used before you really operate your vehicle. Then you have the electric energy here in light yellow, and the fossil energy used here in gray. So the diesel car, of course, needs a lot of fossil fuel. The energy car, on the other hand, needs for operating electric energy. And how much energy or this, of course, so the impact of this energy on the environmental side, of course, depends on the energy mix that is available in your country. So, for example, in Austria, we have a lot of a high share of renewable energy. So in this case, it's more environmentally friendly, as if most of the energy is generated by caloric power plants or things like that. And if we go again to active mobility, here biking and walking, of course, walking doesn't need any energy. Biking, of course, you need to produce the bike, so there is a bit of energy needed, but definitely much less than for cars. This reduced energy usage also goes hand in hand with reduced emissions. As I've already mentioned before, of course, reduced energy means also reduced greenhouse gas emissions, especially if we just use, for example, with our e-cars, renewable energies, then we can contribute to greenhouse gas emission reduction. But if we use active mobility, then we can definitely reduce greenhouse gas emissions caused by our mobility behavior. On the other hand side, it's not just everything about greenhouse gas emissions. It's also, for example, nitrogen oxides that we can definitely reduce a lot by cycling and walking. And we also do not emit or cause particulate matters, which is caused a lot by cars, no matter if they are fossil fueled or electric cars. So reduced emissions, and therefore on the one hand side, a positive impact on our environment and our climate, but also due to reduced nitrogen oxides and particulate matters, also an improvement for our health. And of course, another important point, another important benefit of active mobility is we can significantly reduce noise caused by our mobility behavior, because we do not cause any noise compared to, for example, diesel cars. I've already mentioned health benefits of active mobility. So one of the health benefits is due to reduced emissions, but there are also additional important health benefits by active mobility. If you consider the recommendation by the World Health Organization that everyone should have at least 150 minutes of moderate physical activity per week to have a good health condition. And we consider that nearly everybody of us commutes to work or to school or to university. Then this 150 minutes moderate physical activity is very easily achievable, but just using an active mobility, cycling or walking for commuting. Because if you assume, okay, 5 times a week I have to commute, each day I commute on average 30 minutes, and I do this by bike or just walking, then I do already have this 150 minutes per week. And by doing this, one can reduce the risk of cardiovascular disease, of diabetes mellitus type 2, also the risk of stroke, and also of breast and colon cancer. So this is one very important aspect of active mobility, that we can, by using these active modes, contribute to our personal health, and not just on the physical side, but also on if we consider our mental health, because being active also improves our mental health. It helps us to avoid things like, for example, depression. We have a better sleep. We are more motivated. Also, it contributes to our creativity. So therefore, the health aspect is a very, very important aspect considering active mobility. And last but not least, there is an additional benefit of active mobility, and that's the economic aspect. Because if we consider, okay, we can reduce the risk of, for example, cancer or cardiovascular disease by using active modes of transport, then we also reduce the medical costs in this aspect. So this contributes to the economic side. On the other hand, if we do not suffer from those diseases, we are not sick. So there is a reduced value creation loss. On the other hand side, especially the cycle sector, if we cycle more, then there is an increased value creation in this sector. This includes the manufacturing of cycles, but also the retail, maintenance. It also relates a bit to cycle tourism. So there is a lot of increased value creation in this sector due to more active mobility. One important aspect is that especially active modes of transport increase the regional consumption or shopping. So you can contribute a lot to the local shopping when active mobility is supported. On the other hand, we have already talked about reduced emissions, but also reduced congestion, and also a reduction in accidents is possible. And therefore, these external costs of transport can be reduced significantly by active mobility. Sorry. And last but not least, on the economic side, active mobility or the infrastructure necessary for active mobility is way cheaper than, for example, motorways. I have here on the right-hand side a figure where there is an estimation how much you can build by 10 million euros. And the estimation is that you can build with this amount of money more than kilometers of cycle highways, but just 2.5 kilometers of main roads and only half a kilometer of motorways. So this also points out the benefit of active mobility. On the other hand, active mobility also comes with challenges. I've here put as a challenge the limited space in cities, and this is due to the fact, as I've mentioned here in the second point, our city planning is still very, let's say, car-oriented. So everything is planned with respect to cars in our cities, and there is just a limited space in cities. And so if we now want to change, especially infrastructure, more to supporting active mobility, there is a kind of, let's say, a little fight how space is distributed between car users and users of active mobility. And this definitely requires a behavioral change. On the one hand side, from the users. In our group, there is already a majority using active mobility, but this doesn't hold for all people. And from the city planning side, there is also the necessity of raising awareness to this topic, that there is also a shift in the planning of city districts, of how to distribute space in cities, especially this public space in cities. And to give us time for your questions, I want to stop here now with my short presentation, and I'm looking forward to an interesting discussion. So that I can see you all.
So if
I may, Alexandra, if I may.
Yeah, of course.
What is the influence to be expected of this trend of bicycle motorways or highways? I mean, more and more roads are, if even partially, transformed to bicycle highways. Does this mean anything in square meters needed for transportation by bike?
Not to the square meters. What contributes to the requirement regarding square meters are especially cargo bikes, because a cargo bike does definitely need more square meters than a normal bike. The bike highways do not require so much more space, only if the speed is definitely higher. And this does not just is not just related to bikes, but more to the electrically assisted bikes, because with those bikes, you have a higher speed, and with the higher speed you also need a bit more space. But on the other hand, those cycle highways can contribute a lot to how to say, to increase the usage of active modes of transport, because then you can connect also different areas. Because I don't know how the situation is in Belgium, but in Austria the situation here is that cycle infrastructure is mainly a very local issue. So a city tries to increase the cycle infrastructure within the city, but not focuses on the connection to other areas. And so locally it's in a lot of cases very good, but the connection to other areas is missing. I don't know how the situation in Belgium is, but this is one of the major issues here in Austria.
In Belgium, it's a bit different, in my opinion. There are initiatives to connect regions with cycle highways. Locally, though, there still is a lot to do to make existing cycle paths of a better quality. So yeah.
The quality is definitely an issue. Yeah, sorry, Tom.
If I can add, I'm coming from the energy sector, and we know the word energy transition, but I've never heard of mobility transition. And I think that we are now in a mobility transition where we have two different modes coexisting at the same time and challenging for the same place. So that will be a very big issue. When will you transform the mobility to slower mobility, local mobility, while keeping the roads open for the cars that are still there?
Yeah, that's definitely really a challenge. And to my mind, or it's my current opinion, that we cannot remove every car, and especially not every truck, because we need also goods to be delivered. And of course, we can use cargo bikes or small electric vehicles to deliver goods on the last mile or on the first mile. But there are also larger goods, for example, in the construction sector, and also the long haul. And there we need also other modes of transport. And so we need cars also in our cities a bit, but we can distribute the space in another way. So at least in Austria currently, it's very, very, very car oriented. There are already initiatives, for example, in Vienna, where we have some kind of shared spaces. So very reduced speed limit, and the space can be used by all users, no matter if they walk, if they cycle, or if they drive a car, but they have to do it in a, let's say, respectful way. But it's just the beginning, and still there is, if we want, or if a city wants to use especially parking space and build a cycle lane there, there's a no, that's not possible, and we need this space. And yeah, but I think that's the same in all the countries. We have to go through this challenge.
We're not Sweden yet, or Denmark.
Yeah, definitely, or Amsterdam. Definitely.
I think also the reason why the Netherlands are so good in their biking infrastructure is because everybody rides a bike there. Here in Belgium, at least you see that if you go on the road with a bike, you always have to fight for your right to bike, because a lot of people in their cars are not riding bikes. And in the Netherlands, everybody who is in a car also knows what are the challenges of riding a bike, and they are respectful towards the bikers. So that's, I think, the main reason. Yeah.
That's
got to do with the mindset as well.
Issue, yes. But we see in some parts here in Austria already, there is a kind of a critical mass. And if you have reached this critical mass on bikers, then there is a shift in the mindset. But it's not so easy to reach this critical mass.
Here in Kärnt, we are far from that critical mass.
In Austria, it's also just in a few regions, but not all over Austria.
Okay. Thank you, Alex. It was very interesting, and I hope we can further the discussion after one. But
I have to leave at 1:30.
Okay. We'll keep you informed about what's being said about active mobility. And now I'll give the word to Tom, who will talk about his examples of sustainable mobility.
Yes, and from my side also welcome everybody. It's a pity that we cannot get in contact directly to one and another, but just interrupt me whenever you want some extra interaction. My story is about car sharing, but I start with my first slide already with something else a little bit, because I come from the energy sector, I already mentioned. And I thought it was really nice that Alexandra already showed you that even mobility uses a lot of energy unless you are walking, actually. And my story starts with sharing the sun. So it's coming from another view, not coming from the mobility view. But let me talk you through my story. First of all, like I said, with energy, I already installed my first solar panels in 2007. In 2016, I installed a home battery to keep my sun locally and use it optimally. But last year, we installed an extra carport with solar panels. And already 2 years ago, I was planning for this, and also for our transformation in mobility. We used already at that moment in 2019 shared cars. But I needed, for my energy puzzle to fit, I needed a big battery. And if you buy a battery to store your energy, the cost for a stationary battery is the same as for a mobile battery. So we went for the first time directly to, we didn't have a car, we didn't need a car, but we went for a mobile battery, which is there now standing under our carport. And we share the battery, we share the car, we share the solar energy. together with a lot of other people. And that way, the cost of owning that car, cost of owning a battery, cost of optimizing your solar energy is all connected to one another. So it's more than just sharing a car, it's also sharing our solar energy. We even have a charge point, which is a plug in our front yard, which is free for everybody to share our energy. So it's more than one car, it's broader than that. It's even mentioned on Charge Map. So if you pass in Kernt and you ever want some free charge, stop by and charge your car here. But the car sharing then, we started our car. We wanted actually to have a cooperative who owns the car, so that we are with a lot of people shareholder of the car, and we use the car and share it within the group. But that was too difficult, so we just went ahead with buying the car, partially with our money and partially with a loan. So we started a car share group, and in Belgium we have a website, cozywheels.be, where we can define that group. You have members of a group and you can share one calendar where you know when the car is free. So that platform has been built in Belgium by, it's not a government, but it's a Flemish organization who promotes car sharing as a general, and they created that website. So it's good that it's here. Probably you don't have something like that in Austria, but it could be as well developed also there. As I said, it's our car, it's our insurance. We pay for having that car. That's important to know the story. And 6 neighbors at this moment use it. So they pay us for the use of the car based on a price per kilometer, all in. So it's the insurance, it's the washing of the car, it's new tires, it's the electricity, it's everything is included. And at the end of the year, we make a total account, we make a total calculation. That's the cost to own and ride that car for that many kilometers. And if the cost per kilometer is lower, then they get some refunds. And if the cost per kilometer is higher, then they pay the extra to us. We had last year, because of the COVID situation, we only had 13,000 kilometers where we budgeted 20,000. So the cost was 47 euros, 47 cents per kilometer. And they all had to pay a little bit an extra fee based on their usage. It's a cost sharing. So if, like I said, if you drive less than 20,000 kilometers a year, in the end, they get a refund, because otherwise I would earn money with the car, and that's not the basic goal. So it's not renting. A lot of people ask, oh, you have a Tesla. I want to drive the Tesla also for a week. Can I rent it to go wherever I want? That's not the objective. So we cannot rent it. It's a closed group, but you can also always join the group. Even if you only need it once a month, the car, you can just join the group and use it. Important is, if you join the group, you have to be complementary. So if 2 people have the need for the car on Monday morning, then of course you cannot share a car. A car sharing is based on complementary usage profiles. If you have 2 the same, then you would need 2 cars, but with 2 cars you can have plus then the number of car sharers that you have before. For us, it's if we use the car only 1/3 of the kilometers, then of course the cost is also only 1/3. So at that moment, it becomes very interesting to even drive a Tesla Model 3. And as the neighbors pay for my solar energy, we can also share the sun. And that's something in Belgium where we are not allowed to sell our surplus of solar energy. I always tell the distribution grid operator here that I just sell my solar energy through my car. So that's basically something that is also very interesting. Just a little practical insight view. We have a website, like I said, on Cozy Wheels. We have a calendar where you can see who has a car, who wants a car, who wants to share a car, and who has a car to share. So you can just do a matchmaking with people around you in your neighborhood. And this is a map of Hasselt, where the campus in Diepenbeek is also shown here. And we are here in Kermt with some users around us. We have 2 cars actually in the neighborhood, so it's starting to spread out, but it's only in the early stage here. On the website autodelen.net, but then more for the Flemish-speaking part, we have some explanation about how this works. We have on our mobile phones just a calendar where we can see who has reserved the car at what time. So we know when the car is free, and maybe if you need the car a little bit earlier. Like yesterday, I needed to pick up my wife from the station, and she texted me, "Is the car free?" And I said, "No, the car is not free, but some other person was able to pass by the station to pick up my wife to get home." So it's also a matter of community where you can call each other, and you find a way to make whatever you need on mobility you need. This I will go more quickly, just make a reservation. And you can also say, I really need this vehicle. For example, for a doctor's appointment, you cannot change your need of the car. But if you want to go to the store to pick up some big goods, you can also say, I can also go 2 hours later. So if somebody else wants it, I can free up my reservation and change it a little bit. A little question for you and you as participants in this session. Is that something you could be using, car sharing? Like Sarah said in the beginning with the first question, a lot of people own a car, but there are some people who don't own a car. So they are the target group of car sharing? No, it's more the people who own a car are the target group for car sharing, because maybe you can even share your car like I do with other neighbors. And there are some questions you can ask yourself. I have 6 questions here. If 4 of these questions apply to you, where you can say, yes, I sometimes need a second car, or I think owning a car is expensive. You can plan your car usage. That's something very important. If you have every day from 9 till 5, then it's difficult to share a car. Then you need a car from 9 to 5. But after 5, of course, the car is free. So if you have some yes answers on this, definitely car sharing is something for you. We have a website also developed here in Belgium, safewithcarsharing.be. The URL is in English, but actually the contents of the website is in Flemish or in French. So you cannot go there and just click your way through if you don't speak Dutch. But with Google Translate, you can find your way a little bit in it. So definitely give it a try, where you can calculate what kind of saving can you get from car sharing. And for this, I have some questions just to throw into the group, but I will not ask you to answer them. We can discuss later maybe. But if you think for a few seconds of the cost of owning a car for the people who have a car, there are not a lot of people who know exactly the answer to this question if they own a car. How much does your car cost? All in, I speak about what does it cost for a whole year to own a car. And if I then say that it's 5,000 euros per year or 400 euros every month, then people say, no, it's not that much. I have an old car. I already see that Alexandra says 650 per month. Yeah, like it is a lot of money if you just put it like that, but we don't see that amount of money because the car is just parked in front of the house. We use it whenever we need it. But the cost of owning a car is this. I'm not saying it's a lot of or not a lot, but this is the cost. And if you then ask yourself, how long is your car parked every day? If you drive, not a little, 20,000 kilometers a year, if you drive that amount of kilometers, how many hours every day your car is parked? I'm not discussing this because if you drive 100 kilometers every day, or 20,000 kilometers per year is actually 50 kilometers per day. In the local area, 50 kilometers per hour is 1 hour, so it's 23 hours parked a day. You also have to find for a parking spot, so that's also something you have to count in, of course. But that's a lot. And of course, if you go to the college, then it's parked there, and then it's difficult that somebody else takes it at that moment. But there are a lot of hours that somebody else can share it. And if you start sharing it on the lot of hours that you can share it, then the question is, how much can you then save from that 5,000 euro per year? And that's what this website shows you. And it's always coming out in the range of 1,000 to 3,000 euro per year if you share your car. So not only for the ones that don't have a car, but also for the ones that have a car, they can earn 1,000 to 3,000 euros per year just by sharing the car. So I think I know a lot of things to do, nice things to do with that amount of money. Basically, if you then, in the end, and we can discuss later on more, if you then in the end say, yeah, but for me, it's not applicable because I own a car, but I cannot share my car, then it's, well, why do you need a car? That's a question that you need to ask. If that's something that people don't ask themselves because they have a car. So, but once you bought a car, but why do you really need that car? What's the real need of that car? And if you can answer that, then maybe you can see what are then the opportunities to share a car. People say, I can't share a car because I know exactly what my need is for that car, but maybe we can go into discussion later on. Some people can't share their cars, but why? That's something that you really need to find out, because if you are a surgeon and you need to be able to leave home whenever there is a call, yeah, then you need to have mobility available, but you don't explicitly need a car. So if you have in the neighborhood 5 cars that are always available, then even a surgeon can make his way to a very important surgery. And then I already said surgeon, for example, but are there people who can't share a car? Maybe a taxi driver can't share a car because that's actually his job, driving a car. Yeah, but how many car hours per day that taxi is not driving around as a taxi? And then you come to the Uber story where you can share a car and then also be a taxi driver. And so I just wanted to start a little bit the discussion because people think that cars are so obvious. And yeah, we show that sharing a car is definitely a possibility. And as a final remark, I wanted to show you my car key because if you have a car or share a car, you need a car key. And that's also basically a little bit the solution to our mobility challenge. We have a car key and every car sharer has a car key. It's just a card actually to open our car. That's the new technology. It works like this. But actually I never take my card with me because I have my phone and my phone is my car key. But this is my Tesla car key for our I shared car. But I have a lot of cards to play card with because the solution to, I think, every challenge that we have, even the climate challenge, is diversity. And the reason why I'm not stuck with my car, because you can say, yeah, but if your neighbor is gone with your car and you have an urgent call now and you need to leave, yeah, then I have, for example, a Cambio car sharing possibility in Hasselt, where we have 14 cars of Cambio that are always, some is present. We have a Zen car abonnement. And then as last, we have, I don't know if you can see it, but it's Blue Bike. Yeah, of course, it's not only about cars. So I can also drive a bike to the train station, take the train to the other side of Belgium, and I have my bike waiting for me at the train station in the other side of Belgium, and I just go the last mile by bike. So that's why one car is definitely not an issue if you can play cards. Thank you for listening. Good one, Bert. That's something that UCLL needs to develop, I think. Biodegradable cards. Eh?
We could print them on Apple leather.
Yes, I know. So, but that's maybe a nice project to go along, because the card which we use to open a car is just an NFC chip.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
in whatever carrier you put that chip, there are even people in the Tesla community who have planted an NFC chip in their arm or whatever, so they can open their car with their arm. So just, yeah, you can make them.
Mhm. One little question. You use the Tesla car as your home battery as well, or not?
Yes, that's
So it is connected.
basic-
It is connected with
basic-
your domestics.
Yeah, and that's basically the reason why that car always is parked at our place. So people ask me if they needed to use the car for a whole day, in the morning to get some stuff, in the evening to get some stuff or to do some things. Then I always ask them, if you don't need them over the lunch or the noon, the highest peak in the solar production possibility, please park them back at our place, because I have a smart charging profile connected to my plug outside, who says if I have surplus energy on my solar panels and my home battery is full, then I put it into my car. But if my car is half,
you combine it with a home battery as well. It's not your only battery.
Yes. Yeah. But it's not bi-directional yet. So we are not using the energy from the car to power our house, but that's something that is coming in the next years. But that's a different discussion. It's not for this lunch session, I think.
At that moment, your car sharing will be less cost effective.
I don't know, because where the car is parked, when somebody shares it, for example, somebody is coming to the UCLL campus to do a workshop during the day or following classes the whole day, when it's parked there, you also have a surplus of solar energy. And probably you will pay me or the car sharer to use your solar energy surplus to put it in the car, because if you have to put it on the grid, you get not that much of money.
Yeah.
So we can pay you for a little bit for the solar energy, otherwise you get less when you put it in the grid. So no, it's not that the business case as such is changing, it's just that the world around it is changing.
Yeah.